as I gather from reading about qubits, they're inherently unstable. And only at a certain temperature, et cetera, will you be able to have that. What if somebody pulls the plug out of the machine? I gather that in our current system, the data is stored and you put the plug back in. Now, of course, I'm speaking metaphorically, I'm not speaking literally. But what if there's a disruption in how the data is being processed / stored? And how do you do a quality review to make sure disruption didn't occur, since the complexity and speed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Whomever would wish to speak to that, please do.
Thank you, Senator Cassidy, for the question. So quantum mechanics has some very interesting features, right? So to directly answer the question, how do we ensure that the machine has not lost functionality, has not drifted, or has some other difficulty along the way?
Even for a nanosecond.
Even for a nanosecond, we can run calibration sequences, and they're part and parcel of making sure that the machine is functioning at its optimal performance. So there are very specific tests in quantum mechanics, some that we know now, others that we are developing, within the domain of what's called verification and validation. So there's a whole field of quantum verification and validation where you run this particular set of algorithms to make sure that your machine, for example, has
And you know what the results of those algorithms would be beforehand, and if the result comes out as you anticipate,
correct.
then...
And in fact, they're on very solid footing because they're predicted by quantum mechanics itself.
So then let me ask you, how do you store the data? Because if there is a problem, then everything you've worked on prior to that point is poof.
Right. So I think an important point to also bring up here is how quantum technologies complement classical technologies, right? So in particular, this combinatorial space that you can access with quantum is really the power of quantum, but things like storing numbers, adding numbers, minimizing things are perfectly well done on classical machines. So in fact, most of the near-term applications really use a hybrid model, where the quantum is used only as for the little quantum step, and all the other steps are classical. So in fact, then you gain still all the benefits of what you're saying in classical technologies.
So then let me ask, seeing how all this is kind of a great unknown as to how we're going to pull this off, will those who develop it have proprietary, if Microsoft is the one that answers this question, would then Microsoft then have the ability to restrict other people's access to the technology without a license fee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, what Dr. Siddiqui was saying is absolutely true, that in today's world, most of the algorithms that we're looking at are a combination of classical and quantum, and they would sit in some sort of data center so you could access that information through a data center. We are actively building what we're calling a scalable, stable quantum computer built on a qubit that's highly stable and highly scalable. We are doing a lot of IP that we're writing patents around it, and it will ultimately belong to Microsoft. These algorithms will ultimately run in our data centers, so customers will have access to it through our data centers. But it is something that we're putting a lot of Microsoft people on to develop something that we can believe that will solve a lot of problems, both commercial and non-commercial problems.
Yes, sir.
Senator, so the way I would separate this is that there's still basic research that will be open access. That's a lot of what the universities and national labs do. That will be applicable to anyone who's trying to commercialize a particular product. And then obviously there's a wide array. They're growing exponentially, it seems like, in terms of private industry around all the different 3 major applications. They will develop their technologies, and each one will have their particular way of attacking computing and sensing and so on. That would be dynamic. I think it's a good thing for the country. I would make a comment around hybrid computing. Besides being in basic research, the Department of Energy is a major consumer of high-performance computers, right? We build Summit, we build Exascale. And they have been, we've actually pioneered hybrid systems. The GPU system, which is hybrid, which is what the current high-end performer systems are, which is classical CMOS chips plus graphics processors to pick out which areas we pioneered and is part of our computers. We expect that, I think it was just said, that future computers, instead of having graphics processor units plus traditional CMOS, might have attached quantum computers with a traditional classical computing system that will transfer data back and forth, memories, and saving data, and optimizing which should be calculated in which part of the computer.
Dr. Guha?
So I'd like to make a quick point that quantum information, this is not the X+1th development of, an existing form of computing that we know about very well, like classical computing. This is a case where we're not sure about the hardware, the software, the algorithms, or the use cases. So there needs to be, in my view, a large component of open basic research. There is a time for black box research, and there is a time when a lot needs to be
I
open
totally
and
accept
shared.
that, but I think Microsoft's more interested in black box.
There needs to be a balance somewhere.
And I didn't mean to throw
No,
Microsoft.
let me answer that. Like we do, so we work with a lot of universities, and we have a tiered program where we do basic research with the universities, and then also, which they own that IP and we have access to it. And then we also do some specific research, which you call black box, that's specifically dedicated for the product that, or the solution that we think, as Dr. Guha was saying, that we think is going to enable quantum computing. So we're doing actually both of those.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm over. Am I allowed to?
Just a very small comment to sort of link all of these different ideas together. There will be a time where quantum computers outperform classical ones. So how do you know that the answer from the quantum one is reliable? Right? So in pre-competitive research, at the moment, there's tremendous value in performing the same computation on a quantum machine and a classical machine, so we can verify that the quantum one is working the way we think it is. And we're very much deeply in this phase at the moment. So I think there's quite a period of time where we can sort of learn about these machines, vet them, so on and so forth. And then, of course, there will be different roads by different consumers of this product, whether it's in the civilian or military disciplines and so on and so forth.
Thank you.